Well, first, I'd like to thank Chris for being here, all you guys for being here. It's great. I really enjoy this. I also would like to say, first off, I fully agree with Chris in that there is no proof for God, nor is there no proof against God. I will not be arguing to try and convince you that God is real, as in that there's no scientific evidence for it, there's no proof for it, because, simply put, science deals with natural things, and God being supernatural should not be approached with looking for scientific proof, if that makes sense. So I more lean towards looking for the hints and the clues, which I believe are present in the universe, present in the way we live, the way we exist, that seem to indicate that there should be that there is an indication, a clue, a hint, evidence per se for a God. So I think I'd begin by pointing out, Chris obviously brought this up in his argument, but the fact that the scientific argument, the fact that the Big Bang did just happen, that seems to be the scientific agreement from my understanding. Obviously, it is not indicating that there is a personal, all-powerful God that is, there and it went zap and decided to create the world. But the fact that there is no scientific explanation for how that could happen, the fact that, and you can say that we, have, obviously don't know everything about the universe. We don't know everything about the world. We don't know everything about the beginning of time or anything like that. But the fact that at time 0 there was nothing, at time, to our knowledge, at time 0 there was nothing, and at time 10 to the negative 37 seconds there was a little dot smaller than a pencil point that then expanded and led to the entire universe. The fact that we have no scientific explanation for that seems to lend a hint, a clue, not proof or evidence, but just a push in the direction of some sort of cause. There must have been some cause for that to happen. And from my perspective, as somebody who does believe in God, God fits into that mold very nicely. A God that could have, snapped his finger, a God that could have done something that involved that creation, that explains it. And obviously, I'm not saying it's the only explanation. I don't know of what the other explanations are. I'm sure Chris will talk about that in his rebuttal. But the fact that will play that role seems to me evidence for the existence of God. A second thing is that the constants in the universe. There are, for example, the gravitational constant, the constants of weak forces, strong forces, all those kinds of things. They are so precisely balanced to lead to life, to lead to the existence of organic life on this planet, and for matter to coalesce the way it does. That if they were off by just a 1 in a million, some of them, if they're off by 1 in a millionth or 1 in a million millions, it would mean that matter would not move, matter would not coalesce, matter would not be produced the way it's supposed to, the way it does now, that leads to all of us being in this room here talking about the subject. So again, that is not, obviously, that could have happened. There are, if there are infinite possibilities, that could easily have happened. But if I was dealing a poker game, and I dealt myself 100 winning hands with royal flushes in a row, I could say there's infinite possibilities that could have happened, that could easily have been the case. But you would not say that. You would instantly assume that I was cheating. You would assume that I had somehow loaded the deck and had won that way. And why? And the fact that we tend to try and put the creation, the beginning of the world, and these constants, and say that, well, there's infinite possibilities, so that's possible there, but that it's not possible in other situations in life. I think that's an evidence for the existence of God. And about those constants, the fact that they are constant, there is no scientific explanation for constancy in nature. There's no scientific reason for why the gravitational constant remains the same, for why these constants E and pi and things like that. There's no reason for why those. Well, there's a reason for pi, but anyway, there's no reason though for the universal constants to remain the same. And the fact that they continuously remain the same, again, it is not a proof. It is not an evidence. But from my perspective, as somebody who does believe in God, I see that as evidence, further evidence, for the existence of God. And the fact is that all these scientific arguments, they are just hints and clues and pushes towards belief in God. That no matter how much evidence I could possibly show, no matter how many arguments could possibly be defeated in the argument about whether or not God exists, there will always be faith. I believe in God, and there is no way to prove that belief in God. If I proved that God existed, I wouldn't have belief. I wouldn't have faith. So by definition, I cannot prove, and in fact, I would not even want to prove that God exists, because that would destroy my own faith. So the fact is that Chris alluded to several of the questions, like why do we exist? Why do we I don't remember all the ones he brought up, but why do we exist? Why is there something rather than nothing? He brought up these questions, and the fact is that, at least for me, I do have a desire in me for something. I have a desire for meaning. I want to believe. I want there to be a God. I want there to be, something real. I want there to be a point to life. I want there to be an afterlife. I want there to be reward. I want there to be justice. And yes, you can say that, those desires are all just evolutionary, evolutionary mutations that lead me to survive better. But the fact is that I want there to be a God. And as silly and odd as it sounds, the fact that I want there to be God seems to give me a good reason to believe in a God. Because if we're talking about, what's the correct reason, what's the correct point of view, well, I mean, everything that we seem to be doing is in order to make life the best it can be, to make existence the best it can be, to make our time. Let's say, for sake of argument, let's say there's no God. If I can live a better and happier and more enjoyable life by believing there's a God than believing there's not a God, why wouldn't I believe there's a God? So for me personally, it all comes down to faith in God. I desire there to be a personal God who can listen to my problems and listen to my joys and listen to my dreams and all that. That is my desire. I love that. I love that about my life. So for me, it all comes down to that all the scientific evidence, the scientific clues, the scientific hints and all that supplements my faith. That supplements my belief in God. It supplements, and I can see that quite possibly. The reason I see that as evidence for God is quite possibly because I already am Christian. And that is a very good chance. But the fact is that my faith isn't dependent on science, but it's dependent on my own life and my own experience. And from what I know and from what I've seen, I believe that there is enough evidence to believe in God, and enough reason to want to believe in God for me, for that to be, as Chris is saying, the default belief. That is the end of the thing. So I just thank you all for listening. I thank Chris. I know he will most likely tear everything I just said to shreds. And thank you all.
All right.